the show that formerly known as. Well, it looks like folks are piling in, man. It's good to see you guys and gals. Arturo and I have been sitting here pondering what we're going to even call this show. For right now, it's the show with no name, like
Yeah.
the horse with no name, or um, Clint Eastwood, Pale Rider, the dude with no name. So this is going to be the show with no name.
All right, then.
So, so I guess a little bit of breaking news. I spent the afternoon in the ER because last Friday I didn't really think I fell that bad. I kind of skint my leg a little bit, negotiating some stairs in the rain with some flip flops that probably they're going to get upgraded now because I am literally sitting here on injured reserve with my broken leg propped up on a chair. So that is how hard we work for y'all.
Yeah, no
Coming
kidding.
in with a broke leg. So Arturo, man, I had limited Wi-Fi service while I was sitting in the ER. And by the way, the people were so nice. Nobody asked me for money. I'm sure I'll be informed at some point. But it was like I did not feel like I was not going to get treated. You know what I'm saying? It took all afternoon. I mean, I had to sit around, but I took a nap, played some dominoes on my phone and just waited, but they were great. I guess it's my fibia. It's like one of those two bones that go down. And I had been walking around, well, hopping around because I thought I had just twisted my ankle. So,
Yeah.
but no, that was not the case. So, anyway, that's my sob story. Please subscribe. I, I broke my leg. Please subscribe. Okay. No, serious. No, I think you know what, Cheryl. I think you're right. I think it was the tibia, the one that starts with a T, because it was down. It's down by, oh, like your ankle bone, but it's your leg, not really your ankle yet, and that's a good explanation because it sure felt like something was not right. But I've never broken a bone before, so I can scratch this off my bucket list.
Man, I've broken a lot of bones, man.
I have not, man. This is new. I have mangled some limbs. I have definitely sprained a few and torn some tendons, but never broken anything. So I guess I need to up the vitamin D, whatever it is, make sure my bones don't get all brittle and stuff.
Some calcium or something. Yeah.
Something, yeah. So that's my sob story, people. I'm gonna let Arturo talk for a minute. What I missed this afternoon?
Well, I mean, the U.S. took that Venezuelan oil tanker yesterday.
Yes.
Seized that tanker.
Now let me ask you. I mean, it seemed like it was the way I read it. It almost seemed like it was legit. They wouldn't have gotten it if not for the fact that a third of our military is down there. But I mean, wasn't it like using a false flag or it's like a shadow oil? What do they explain? What's going on?
Well, it's tricky too because okay, so yeah, they allege that the ship had a Guyanese flag.
Right.
I guess to try to get past all the military stuff. I don't, it's hard to say why, but the U.S. is also alleging that this boat has, for the last couple of years has like hidden its actual location,
Mm-hmm.
has shipped oil from Venezuela and Iran and all this other stuff. And I talked to, well, there's one lady who follows me. She's in Venezuela. She's on Substack, and I restacked her post because she kind of goes through and explains how a lot of Venezuelan oil gets passed through and sold on the market. And typically, a ship will go to like Africa. The oil will get refined a little bit, because it's pretty rough crude oil. It'll get refined and, all these additives and everything put in it. And by the time it leaves all these facilities, it's no longer traceable as Venezuelan oil.
Hmm.
They put it on another ship, and then it could go to wherever. Um, there was I read some allegations on like CNBC. They were talking about how the ship was headed to Cuba. Um, that's always possible. Venezuela does do the whole barter thing with Cuba.
Hmm.
They send oil and receive like aggregate material, stuff like that in return. Which isn't illegal, by the way, but um, Venezuela has been, to sell their stuff on the open market is almost a non-starter because everything about Venezuelan oil is sanctioned, from the ships that transport it, the country itself, its refineries. And then, today the US they use the word blocked several oil tankers coming out of Venezuela too from doing any business anywhere internationally. And so yeah, they're like broadening their list of ships and people that are tied to the oil industry in Venezuela. And they also sanctioned a bunch of Nicolas Maduro's wife's nephews they were part of the whole prisoner swap thing that happened earlier this year,
Oh yeah, right.
beginning of the year. Yeah, they were part of that. They were being held supposedly on drug charges, and they were part of that prisoner swap deal. I think it was either January or February, that first one. And so the U.S. redesignated them as, essentially drug smugglers and all this stuff. It's
Are we ever
kind
going
of
to see any, I don't know, like evidence?
right.
I mean,
They
it's
essentially
really easy to just call people things,
right, right. Yeah, I mean, they're essentially reneging on the deal um, related to the prisoner swap. The U.S. is as far as like charging those nephews, but they allege again because these guys were allegedly smuggling drugs into the U.S. Now that they're claiming some sort of connection to Nicolas Maduro, but these guys are from his wife's side of the family, kind of distant relatives. You know what I mean? So they don't really have any direct connection to Maduro other than a familial connection. But it's just the whole thing is sketchy.
Yeah,
We
have I lost Mr. Dominguez?
it just weird.
You kind of froze on that on us for about 5 seconds there.
Yeah, so I don't know, I was saying how we condemn the Houthis for stealing oil tankers and essentially they were doing it to stop a genocide. We're doing it out of greed. Um and it doesn't really make a lot of logical sense, but I mean we're talking about the White House here. Um there's a lot of other questions. They had the FBI and Homeland Security investigations involved, right? In international waters. These are domestic agencies that don't really have authority outside of our borders unless
Right.
we're working with another government. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of really suspicious stuff. I haven't seen the whole FBI HSI thing be brought up yet, but I see a lot of like legacy media type, like corporate media kind of justifying this, like this is something that almost like this is just something we do. It's not. We've done it before. We've taken, you know,
Yeah. When was the last time we
tankers.
did something like this? If you know.
I want to say probably it was under Biden, maybe his second year, and I want to say it was an Iranian flag vessel
I
or
was I
something.
was just going to say my guess would be that it would have been like in the Strait of Hormuz or somewhere like the Persian Gulf or
Right.
um.
Yeah, I know it was. I know it was. There was a big stink about it for a while, and the real thing is who bought that oil that was on that boat? Like, who did it belong to?
Hmm.
Right? Because because of China and BRICS and stuff like that, they can skirt U.S. sanctions. They can buy oil from Venezuela and just kind of flip us off in the process. And it is possible that that boat was going to Cuba, but that's a pretty large boat for Cuba. Typically, Cuba gets, smaller tankers. And, some reports out of Venezuela are saying that its destination was Asia somewhere. They didn't specify where.
Hmm.
So that's the big question for me because,
Probably China.
right, essentially somebody paid for that oil and bought it, and the U.S. just stole it. So, somebody might come to collect. I don't, or try to collect, I should say. It's just so weird the way things are playing out. Um, it's like they have to invent something new every day to justify some sort of other action.
Well, those Epstein files ain't gonna cover themselves up, man.
No
I mean,
shit. Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
they got to keep us looking over there instead of looking over there, right?
yeah.
So, I saw the most interesting thing just before I was getting on here. I was trying to decide, should I wait until after the show or before the show to take this oxycodone that they gave me at the hospital. I think I'm probably gonna wait like forever, man. I'm scared of that stuff. But but I saw this clip. I assume this is something that happened recently. And I'm thinking of um the guy in the house. I want to say he was the head of the January 6th committee, black guy, beard. He's from down south.
Benny Thompson.
Benny Tom, yes. So he was questioning a guy. The the guy was I guess from the FBI. I'd never seen him before. And this guy starts off and he's got his little script and he says that Al Qaeda is like the most dangerous threat to national security and it's a terrorist organization. He's saying all this stuff. And Benny says, so exactly where is the location of Al Qaeda in the United States? Where are they headquartered? And this guy just he just froze. He just and it was like almost like, that does not compute. I mean, his brain literally locked because I don't know, I guess they don't think anybody would ever ask. They didn't think anybody ever asked that. And he starts back with something just a total non sequitur, not even. And Benny Thompson just stops him and says, "No, I'm asking you. You've told us this is a threat to, Antifa is a threat to national security. So how many, how have you come to this conclusion, right? Antifa, exactly, Chris. Um, and the guy was like, well, we're starting to, he says, no, but you're saying it's a national security threat. How did you arrive at that? And this guy just was totally just flummoxed. He didn't have an answer. And I just thought, how can you live in a world like that where you're walking around saying, you're saying
Yeah,
shit like that, and none of the people around you ever say, well, do we know where they are? I mean, because Benny Thompson was like, yeah, how many people are in Antifa? Name, what are some of the threats to explain it? The guy didn't have anything, nothing.
yeah. And that, a lot of that's how you get them a lot of the time. You ask them questions, right? Just
Just the normal
basic,
stuff.
just normal stuff, right? And they get flustered. Like a lot of these far right people get flustered. And I wish, like when Chris Wray was in Congress under Biden, and he was talking about red lights blinking everywhere, that basically Hezbollah and Hamas were coming across the border, and they were everywhere
Mm.
in Latin America, and they have training camps, and at no point did anybody say, "So, do you have any evidence of this?" Because I've heard that for years, and I've asked for evidence, anything that isn't classified, just show me something, and then
I
nobody
mean,
has
if you're going to say something, an organization is a threat to national security, but you can't even tell me who's in charge of this shit.
it's a straw man.
It's, dude, I've seen better straw man. I mean,
Yeah,
this
yeah, for
is
real.
this is like it's delusional. I've just never seen anything like it. And that's, yeah, that's the part that sticks with me, Arturo, is
Yeah,
I have encountered people that I thought I knew pretty well. And you're sitting up and boy, it ventures into the political conversation. And all of a sudden, it's Hunter Biden's laptop coming out. And I'm like, well,
right.
what? And like you said, you asked the question. So what's he done that's illegal? They never can tell you.
Yeah, they can't.
It's just
Yeah,
like a boogeyman that they've created.
it's like It's like Maduro, right? Same thing, inventing different things. And I'm like, if he's such a bad guy, justify it. Let's hear the story.
Look, if he's that bad, I mean, you
What
know,
is there? We didn't have to make up stuff about Hitler, right? Like it was easy. It was easy to see he's a bad guy.
right,
Like
exactly.
Pinochet in Chile, we knew he was a bad guy.
I mean,
It's stuff like
Maduro,
that.
you're trying to tell me he's worse than Netanyahu? I mean, I'm just
Right,
saying.
right,
I'm
right.
just saying.
And
I'm just looking at what these guys are doing. I'm just a guy with a broken leg over here, just watching TV. But it sure
I
looks like
mean,
Netanyahu's done a whole lot more damage than this guy.
right, like you can look back in history and try to figure out when the last time Venezuela attacked a country was, and you'd be hard pressed to find that because the last wars they had was to liberate themselves.
Hmm,
And and it's that was 200 and I don't know 18 like
a long
two-
time ago.
right. And Venezuelans are a proud people, and they're just like we are about their independence and their Independence Day. They
Well,
just
that's the
celebrate it.
thing. So what are we gonna do? Just keep like poking at these folks until we're way past the Gulf of Tonkin kind of accidental somebody. I mean, this is like at this point, if we get out of this without some real, like really bad situation happening, I'll be totally surprised.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I mean, I still am concerned about like ground invasion stuff because it's not gonna. I mean, we're gonna lose people. They're gonna lose people. It's just gonna be ugly, and I just don't think anybody in the White House cares.
No.
It's just they don't. People are just pawns to them. It's whatever. If they kill people, they kill people, and they don't really even care. So it's just like the National Guardsmen got killed in D.C. The White House put them in that position. They shouldn't have been there. It was
Mm-hmm.
pointless. It was stupid. And you made targets out of them. And, anybody who's going to go off the deep end that's who they're going to go after. And it's just a shame because, National Guardsmen on our city streets have very limited ability, to do anything. They have, you know, rules of engagement. You get
Right.
fired once fired upon. They're not cops. Cops shoot first. National Guardsmen don't. So, you're just putting them in a situation that they're not equipped for. Yeah,
Mm.
sure, they grew up in cities and towns just like we did, but they're not there to be enforcement officials. They don't
That's
know how
not
to
their
do that.
job.
Right.
Arturo, I saw a couple of people said they're having a hard time hearing you. Can you check your sound? Make sure your mic's turned up because we don't want to miss anything.
Yeah. Any better?
Yeah, they'll let us know. I can hear you.
Yeah, I hear you fine too. Yeah. Uh,
So, so yeah, Venezuela. And I guess too, it's so funny, man. A lot of this stuff is so you can just see it coming a mile away. Like,
yeah.
for example, was it yesterday that this bailout for the farmers was it $12 billion? Yeah,
Yeah, something like
I
that.
think it was yesterday, and it is almost a just a complete repeat of what he did when he was in office the first time.
Right. I thought the
But
same thing.
this is going to be worse, really, because his first term it was just him going at China, and that nearly destroyed the agriculture sector here. I mean, just the bankruptcies alone. Okay, so there's that. But now, so he is, and this is so slick the way they try to do it to say they're not using the tariff money.
Yeah.
There's a fund that they're accessing in the agriculture department, but the money, so they're going to take that money and give it to use it for farmers, and that fund is going to get replenished with tariff money. So the farmers aren't directly getting bailed out from the money that put them in the shape they're in.
Right.
It's so crazy. It's so
It doesn't
crazy.
make any sense. And there's something, man, I've been meaning to ask you about because I keep seeing people post about the Fed pumping money into the banking system. Have you seen anything about this? Is it
Well,
legit?
that's their job.
Yeah, yeah.
What the Fed does. Yeah, well, when the Fed eases, that's what it means is they're easing the availability of credit. Okay. And there are a lot of ways they do that. You know, lowering interest rates is the common thing that we think of. But yeah, it makes money easier it makes loans easier to get. That's the whole objective is they're trying to stimulate. So that's what's so crazy to me. They're trying to stimulate the job side of the economy. Okay. What's funny to me is how I keep hearing Trump and all of his minions talking about how great the economy is. The Fed doesn't have to lower rates when everything's going okay.
Right.
If the economy is just like barreling along, if anything, they're going to be trying to keep rates high enough so that we don't get overheated and have too much inflation. Problem that we've got right now is we got both. We've got weakness, not falling off a cliff, but weakness in the job market. Um, we've got, um, well, just some of the numbers that we're seeing. And the other thing, we're seeing a lot of numbers that are telling us a lot of layoffs. I mean, announced layoffs are over a million jobs this year. That is beyond, we haven't seen anything like that since the pandemic would be the last time.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so folks it's really funny to me when I see a comment here about the Fed printing money. That the Fed, that's what they do is print money. I mean, well, not physically like we think of it. Now it's all, we're just moving stuff on the ledger at this point because it's all digital, but I mean, it's what they do. It's what they're for is to control. We used to actually, back in the olden days when I first got in this business, we didn't really look at the jobs numbers like they do now. I mean, we did look at it, but we used to look at money supply. That used to be like on Fridays, they would announce the money supply. And I guess, I mean, this is back in the 80s. I guess that was at that time considered the best gauge of how much money is floating around in the banking system, right? And if it's contracting, credit's getting a little tighter. And I'm oversimplifying it, but that was the measure that was like key. And now it's more along the line of obviously rates. When we used to look at the Fed cutting rates, we used to look at what's called the discount rate, not the Fed funds rate. So there are all kinds of different ways
Yeah.
to look at it.
Yeah, I see
Um,
people people freaking out about it. They're like, that means banks are short on cash. And I'm like, I don't think that's what that
no,
means.
no, it doesn't mean anything like that. No, it's all about what you got to keep in mind is with regard to the Fed, they got two jobs. Price stability on one side, which means they got to worry about inflation. On the other side, labor, jobs. So they've got a problem now because you got upward pressure on inflation. And at this point, I watched yesterday after they made the announcement. Powell, the Fed chair, always does like a press conference and answers questions and stuff. And he was pretty straightforward about the fact that at this point, tariffs are what's driving inflation. There was some layover inflation from all the stimulus early in the Biden administration when we came out of the pandemic. That was like a complete shock of all these people coming back in, just driving demand. That's what made us shoot up to like what 9.5% inflation. Okay. Because people been in their houses for 2 weeks or 2 years, couldn't go out to eat, couldn't do all this stuff. So when we came out of the pandemic, you've got people with money to spend because of the stimulus and they're ready to spend it because they haven't been able to do anything for a couple of years. That's what made interest or inflation go up like
Yeah,
it
that
did.
makes sense.
I mean,
Yeah, it makes
it's
sense.
just what it was. You think about it, man. We had a complete supply shock where you
Right.
couldn't buy a bicycle. No, you. I mean, we had like a complete disruption to the supply chain, and so it just created this pent up demand. And once we came out of the pandemic, just tremendous demand, jobs, people getting hired, driving wages. I mean, all this stuff. So I'm surprised we didn't go beyond 10%, but we didn't. Um, the problem now, though, is we got 3% inflation, and none of those things that I just described are happening. It's really tariffs.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
tariffs. That's all it is.
Yeah,
So,
that part's pretty cut and dry. You know what I mean?
well,
It's
and
just
I think the Fed isn't worried that we're about to like have like a big calamity. But I will say there's a lot to be concerned about, man. I mean, you like these bankruptcies that we're seeing with farmers. I mean, that's not nothing. And then you look at all the folks that have been laid off from the federal government. I mean, most of what we talk about is private sector jobs. But, I pointed this out, I don't know, a month or so back that, we had I don't know, 500,000 folks get laid off right at the end of September, but we never had an October unemployment report, which October is telling you what happened in September, right? I mean, I'm sure the Fed, a 25 basis point cut isn't that much. It's just them sort of putting a bow on what they've been doing the last couple of years. I bet we don't see any interest rate cuts anytime soon unless something catastrophic happens in the job market, which I don't know if it will.
yeah. That's a tough one. I mean, because I feel like that's a 50-50 right now with the job market. Um,
So Sean Flanagan is asking a question. He says, if the economy is so great, how come so many businesses have been sunk? Um, I don't know. I'm not familiar with the number of businesses that have quote been sunk, but I would say this: um, the stock market is a head fake. You basically got 7 companies that are 40% of the value of the stock market, give or take. Um, I don't think the economy is so great, to be honest with you. I think we're not in a depression, but you just look at it, man. You've got um, like credit card delinquencies going up through the roof, people defaulting on their car payments. So people have jobs, but they just can't afford to live.
yeah,
I mean, let that sink in. People have jobs. They can't afford to quit their job because they're scared. They don't want to be out there with no company health insurance because look what that's going to be, right?
yeah,
And they don't necessarily. I say this in a really general way, but generally speaking, productivity has been going up, 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 but wages have not kept up with that. And we can talk about that over decades. I mean, you can just
yeah,
I mean, it's an easy chart to look at. Productivity's gone up, all these different things, but people aren't really they aren't making enough money to stay ahead of inflation. And that's the problem.
yeah.
And it's so weird to me how with these tariffs, you understand the problem is a lot of the things that we have to buy to do whatever business we're in are things that are made in other countries.
Yeah.
So if there's a 10 or 20% tariff on basically everything we buy, you can't really expect anything other than what we got right now.
Right. Yeah, it's just nuts. And I was gonna shift gears because I wanted to ask you about this too. I saw this right before we came on. There's an article on responsible statecraft, and you know what the poly market is. The poly market
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
in apps or whatever. So anyway, apparently a bunch of hacks. They placed a bunch of bets on Russia taking certain Ukrainian territory, and there was something like $1.3 million worth of bets.
Hmm.
And one of the people, the think tanks they were following, had like a live, map going. And one of the people at this think tank, the International uh, something about the studies of war,
Hmm.
and the guy went in there and manually changed the real time map, leading to this huge poly market payout.
To make it look like Russia had taken. See, those are the kinds of issues as that technology matures. Those are the kind of things that it's going to have to deal with, and really, all the more reason for it to be regulated. You know, um, yeah, I've been talking about poly market for a different reason. So, um, I think it was in 2015. I used to be after I left New York, I was a subject matter expert, capital markets, and the guys that I was a consultant. I wasn't an employee of this outfit called Tab Group, and Larry Tab, I would say at the time, and probably still is. He works for Bloomberg now. I would say he's probably considered one of the preeminent, sort of market structure guys in the world, probably. Um, and so I used to do a lot of work for them, white papers, this kind of thing. And then I got hired by, I forget how these folks came. I kind of knew them from New York. This company that I would say they were sort of a forerunner to Polymarket. They weren't taking the crypto, because Polymarket operates in the crypto market. Kalshi, I'm not sure about, but these guys were essentially, this is something they've been trying to figure out for a long time. How can we predict what a stock is going to do based on sentiment? Based on what the market thinks is going to happen. And they could create products to sort of, come up with but they never could figure out how to monetize it, how to turn it into money. So it was really just kind of like some shit in the laboratory stuff. We've created this prescriptive algorithm, and it can predict if Walmart's going to go up an hour from now or something like that. But they couldn't, these guys, I mean, I think they probably pivoted to something else after I wrote this white paper. But what Polymarket and Kalshi have done is they have figured out how to sort of turn the yes or no question of, what's true or what's gonna happen. They figured out how to monetize it. Because think about it like this: me and you are sitting here talking. I say, I don't know, we're going to have a depression. You say we're not. If I'm right, I don't necessarily make any money from that, and if I'm wrong, I don't get punished for that. But if you think about how these prediction markets work, if you're going to make, if you have a view, you got to put your money where your mouth is. You see, and so over the last couple of months, the Intercontinental Exchange has gone into a deal. Or well, they're going to put $2 billion into Polymarket. That's with a B. Well, the Intercontinental Exchange owns the New York Stock Exchange. So what they're going to try to do is, and I don't know that they've really said exactly. It's probably going to be like an a la carte product that somebody like me that ran a desk might use to try to figure out where a sector might be going. I mean, there's any number of things you could be using it for. A few days ago, CNN entered into a deal with Kalshi to use their prediction. They're going to basically um, weave it into their news feed. So what people no, check it out. What people need to be noticing is how the talking heads, the folks on, MS Now, they're going to start referring to the prediction markets instead of polls, because prediction markets are more accurate than polls. Think about it like this: when you see a poll, it's going to be 1,500 likely voters. So they're polling, and so we're whatever opinion they arrive at is based on 1,500 people out of the entire United States
Right.
that are likely to vote, and that's just meaning they voted last time. But it doesn't tell us what the unlikely voter might do. It doesn't tell us more than 1,500 people might be nice to know. That's why these polls are so all over the place. Remember the was it? I'm trying to think. The last midterms, not yeah, yeah. I guess it would have been the 2022 midterms
Yeah.
when Democrats won all those seats. Remember, the reason the polls were so wrong was they didn't expect so many young people to vote, because those aren't likely voters. So all their polling was looking at a subset that wasn't really who showed up to vote. Same thing with Mondami. How do you figure a guy goes from 1% of the vote is what the polls said, and he won by better than 50%?
Right.
So
Right. Yeah, it does
I
make sense.
agree with um, Elizabeth. Yeah, it's frightening, and here's why. If you have a situation where this is a market, it's literally a market. So you have market makers, just like the structure. Think about it like you think of the stock market. The guys on the floor waving their hands, all that stuff. Even though now it's all electronic. Well, if you have a situation like we did before the housing market blew up, when algorithms got introduced into the stock market, this is very similar. It's a very expensive infrastructure to run all this stuff. So the temptation is going to be to favor people who have the best infrastructure over, say, me and you, who are trying to operate on our cell phone, right? Um, And so anyway, those are the considerations that are going to make or break whether this whole prediction market thing um, is successful. I'm not even necessarily saying it's bad. It's definitely it's definitely different, and it's got to be regulated, which I think it's going to have to be for them to do what they're now. The CNN case, not so much. Which, by the way, X has a deal with Polymarket from back maybe in the summer. So you might see a scenario where day traders on X are using Polymarket, to as almost like a front end to like to use for their stock strategies and so forth. So, you know, and I just think we got to be careful when I'm just looking somebody, crypto is Ponzi. Um, Bitcoin for sure is
Yeah.
Ponzi. I mean, I just can't make any sense out of Bitcoin, and I've left a lot of money on the table. But this isn't exactly that. This is using the technology to solve something that we've never been able to solve in finance. Like, for example, uh, and I'm getting a little nerdy. So the Black Scholes model was these two, actually, I think it's three guys, to be honest, but they came up with this way to quantify risk, and they won. I think they won a Nobel Prize in mathematics or something like that. Um, and that is what allowed one of the first ways that traders on Wall Street were able to determine like their risk. Because you're talking about guys that own billions of dollars worth of securities. You have to have some way to know how much risk you have. And so that's what the Black Show model solved. I kind of look at what's going on here in a similar way. They're solving a different question. They're solving the question of what's true. Is
Right.
the poll true, or is this market over here where people are actually putting money down? Is that closer to true? So we'll see. Anyway,
Yeah.
y'all probably found out a whole lot more about Poly Market than you wanted to know, but uh,
You you mentioned Elizabeth Raven. I mentioned you. She said frightening. She's actually an educator in Venezuela. She's
really,
she's the reader I mentioned to you earlier that
uh,
kind of posted an explainer of
mm-hmm. I
how
have to
the
follow her. I'm
how
not familiar.
Venezuela was, yeah, how Venezuela moves oil. She posted an explainer about it, and it's one of those. She's one of those people, and there's so many of them that like they'll. She posts pictures of like her class, and the books that they're discussing, and like how the students and stuff feel about what's going on, and like they give you this perspective that we just don't get here, right? Like when I did the Daily Whatever show yesterday, I was
Oh, I
talking to
didn't know
them.
you did that, man. Those are my buds,
Yeah, yeah. So I was
Lawrence and
talking to
Dana.
them, right? And I was explaining to them how what the perspective, the view is from Latin America. And I used Cuba and Venezuela and Honduras because those are three countries where there's some big things happening involving the US. And like, we talked about how Venezuelans are like celebrate their independence, right? From Spain and stuff like that. And like
Mm-hmm.
how they're just as diehard as we are, and we're nationalist about our Independence Day, right? They are too. And when you look at like what the US is doing, they essentially are uniting Venezuelans, one, but they're also uniting them around Maduro, right? Because his polling numbers as far as like how he's dealing with the US are really high. So despite everybody having issues with the government and some people don't like him, they do approve of his
But
dealings.
he's their guy, though. They picked
Right,
him,
right. So
and it's sort of
it's
like,
like I- it,
this is
it's
some colonialistic kind of
right, right.
hegemony, all those words, man. I just am really, I have to be honest. This surprises me that it is just so overtly illegal. And the problem, and I don't know the answer of how this gets fixed. But we have all these institutions, like we got various courts, the ICC and the Hague and all these, and we're happy to drag all these folks in there from African countries. And I'm not saying these are good guys. I'm just saying, but we're doing a whole bunch of criminality right now.
Yeah,
And I think it was last night I saw where Trump is threatening to sanction the ICC if they come after him. And it's like, or you could stop being a criminal. How
right.
about that?
I mean,
What a concept. How about you just stop doing shit that's illegal and
right, right.
everything's fine?
It's astounding to me because like Republicans in Congress wanted to sanction the ICC. I think this was before Trump took office under
I
Biden
remember
because of the war crime charges against
Netanyahu.
Netanyahu and the other guy.
It's
Yeah,
really, it is really and I grew up, I guess what you'd call sort of a late stage boomer. I was born right towards the end of between being a boomer and whatever the next thing is. And I guess what's after boomers? Gen X, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah.
Um
The bastard kids.
yeah. And man, you just grow up with this. It's sad now. I just think about, like, elementary school, you just got this concept of America and we're so good. And yeah, we kind of fucked up with slavery, but other than that,
For that, we've been good.
we
Yeah.
did a lot of good shit, right? And man, it just breaks my heart that
It,
it was so fucking easy for this guy to do that. It's just that's the part that gets me, man. I know I'm kind of that it was so easy for this guy to just make all these Republicans, I've been listening to Republicans talking about national security ever since we had a TV,
Yeah.
and now they're making up shit.
Right.
Not that
I
they didn't
mean,
make it. Look, I'm not stupid enough to believe America just started making things up, but they had much better stories.
that's for
you
sure.
know,
Right.
but you
Right.
can't tell me. I'm looking at them bombing boats they're saying are, terrorists coming with fentanyl from a country that doesn't really even do that much fentanyl. And these boats don't look like they have the capacity to make it to America. Just like I'm saying, like the type of boat isn't a boat that's going to have enough gas to go from Venezuela to Texas
Right.
without stopping somewhere. Right.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
just like, dang, man, okay, if you're going to lie to me, come up with something better than that. You know,
Right. I mean, that's an 1900 mile journey. That
I
boat is
know.
not going to make that. Right.
Well, and you got to figure either that boat has got a whole lot of gas stored. I mean, so where are the drugs going to be then?
You
And
know, there's
if
no
they
doubt.
had it, man, we we couldn't stop them from showing us the proof if they had it.
Yeah, like one of the things nobody ever talks about too is, you know, on the border of a lot of these Latin American countries, one of the things that's smuggled is fuel, oil, diesels, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. Um, and they load those on boats too, and they island hop with fuel and diesel, and they sell it on the black market. A lot of these boats that you see with these giant round blue drums, I guarantee you that's what's in there. Probably diesel fuel. And they're smuggling it and they're selling it on the black market because they got a hold of some and nobody's going to miss it. You know, you see that stuff happening all over the world, but in like in Latin America, like certain aspects, parts of Central America, there's a lot of like smuggling of fuel.
Yeah.
And it's probably weight wise, it's probably as much as drugs, if not more. You know what I mean? So yeah, they like I said, nobody in this country, even Trumpers who will say, "Oh, you want drug dealers, smuggling drugs to the US." Man, you don't believe 100% that those boats are drug boats. You don't have any evidence. None of us do. Anybody who says they believe that are they're the mark. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're the sucker, dude. Like one of the things that we learned growing up as we're getting out of grade school and into like college age and stuff like that is never trust anything the government says, right?
It used to be
And
don't trust
now,
anybody over 30 until I got to be
right,
30.
well,
And then it was like, well, hang on a second.
yeah, yeah. So, but then all of a sudden, Trumpers who never trust the government ever suddenly want to
I
trust the
know.
government. I mean, come on, dude. Like these guys are the most blatant liars out there. Like you said, we used to have much better stories to
Dude,
confirm
really. I mean,
before.
this stuff that they're coming up with is just not, like I said, this guy, all Benny Thompson asked him was, where is Al Qaeda located? And the guy locked up. I mean, he just was like, like a pop quiz, and he did not expect that question.
They get so caught they're so caught up in their own rhetoric, you know what I mean? That they don't even think that somebody's gonna ask them the basic question, like the thing. Who's their leader? Right? Like,
He
where
didn't
are
have
they
an answer.
located? Right. Yeah, so it's just like, when they used to mention Al Qaeda, they always said, Osama bin Laden, WMD.
Well, look, man, I felt like I had a pretty good handle on those. I mean, they would always show that one clip of these dudes with masks and stuff running around out in the desert doing calisthenics and jumping over shit. So I had like a mental pic. I don't know what Antifa is supposed to look like. what's
Yeah, I
their,
don't either.
what's their symbol? I mean, who are they? What are their colors? I don't know. What tell me? I mean, they just have been going around saying this, and not for nothing. I guess I'm a member of Antifa because
I mean,
I'm
everybody
an
is apparently.
anti-fascist. I know that. It's the
Yeah.
dumbest thing, man. So yeah, they definitely got to upgrade their lies a little bit. Hmm.
Yeah, it's
Man, I'm just looking and we're almost out for time. So tell me what are you working on?
Um, uh, man, a bunch of stuff. I'm working on an article with the Belly of the Beast folks, in the U.S., but some folks, some of them are in Cuba, some are in Spain, and we're clapping back on an article in The Economist that kind of went after Cuba a little bit, but left out, the most important stuff, sanctions. It was like one sentence was mentioned. Um, so yeah, we're doing that, and then I published an article just a little bit ago. I had it scheduled. It came out right when we started about Homeland Security debunking itself. You know how they keep claiming all the immigrants they're arresting are the worst of the
Oh,
worst,
I know. It's yeah.
and then they released some database where you can like search to see which migrants were taken in, like in your community. And out of the 200 and something thousand people they've arrested, there's only like 9,000 people on their database. So it's like fewer than 5% of the people they
Wow.
took in. Yeah, so
Wow.
like the numbers, we were all thinking it was 10%, and now it's apparently lower than that based on their own number.
Man, I saw something else. I'm sitting there with wait, waiting to have my leg X-rayed, and I see this video, and I didn't recognize the Democratic representative, but he was talking to Christy Nome, and he asked her, the number of U.S. citizens that have been, that have been um, deported. And she said, we don't deport U.S. citizens. And the guy had, he had like an iPad, and there you can see this guy is sitting there, and he says, "Well, let me introduce you to Mister So and So. You deported him to South Korea, a month ago." And I just these guys are not ready for any kind of cross examination of anything they're doing.
They believe their own bullshit. I mean, I don't understand it. I don't understand how they think they can just, you know,
Well, for right now, it's kind of, I mean, I say it's working, except it's not working perfectly. I just saw again, I mean, the Tish James, they indicted her again. It's been thrown out again, like
yeah,
that
yeah,
quick. The jury would not even indict. I mean the grand jury. So
right.
yeah, I mean,
And
fortunately for
isn't
us, these guys are not masterminds.
right? Isn't the saying that a prosecutor can convince the grand jury uh, to indict
Ham
a ham
sandwich.
sandwich?
Well,
Yeah,
this apparently wasn't even that. So yeah,
real quick.
they've already for a second time thrown that out.
Somebody somebody asked a question about the election in Venezuela and how people keep using "trust me, bro" evidence about Maduro stealing that last election. I have an
Yeah.
article. I have an article in my Substack. If you look up Venezuela or the word fraudulent, where I went through all those tally sheets for like 2 months. I went through 11,000 of them, and I found a ton of different evidence of fraud. At this point, I can't answer the question about who won and who lost, but I can say that the evidence that Maria Corina Machado's opposition party presented can't be validated. It wasn't validated by the Post or the Associated Press. And
Hmm.
when I did my analysis, I figured out why they can't validate it.
Why is that?
So there's a lot of tally sheets that haven't been certified at the polling place. A lot of them are missing signatures. So you have to have a signature that matches the digital signature with a thumbprint. 90% of those tally sheets don't have those. There are some where there's obvious what do you call it, man? I just went blank. When you copy someone's name,
Oh, like fraudulent stuff.
yeah, fraudulent stuff, right? Like the signatures on some of the tally sheets are all the same handwriting. And
Okay.
some of the names on the tally sheet are just a bunch of numbers and letters with no signature. So yeah, there's a lot. If y'all look up,
Okay.
I've worked on that thing. I worked on that for like 2 months.
Listen, man, she's really something. I mean, this whole thing, I was listening to the radio today and they were talking about how she had made it to Sweden to get her Nobel Prize. She's been in hiding and all. And I'm like, no, she's right over and the United States helped her get to, Sweden and all this stuff.
That's all nonsense. Like, people don't realize that she comes from a billionaire family, like elitist billionaires. She was raised in embassies. Like members of her family were ex-presidents that were really horrible people.
Uh,
People don't understand
well,
that.
hey, you know what, dude? We're gonna depend on you to educate us about this stuff. So I guess we're wrapping up. I would just say we're gonna do this every Thursday at 6. So folks, mark your calendars. Um, hopefully after the holidays, we're gonna maybe we'll have a name for the show. But I'm starting to kind of like the show with no name. I'm starting to like that. It's catchy. um,
Yeah.
but if if you aren't already, definitely you want to subscribe to Arturo's newsletter. He's I mean, we've known each other. I mean, going back before Substack even. So I have been leaning on him for a number of years
Likewise.
just to keep me educated on what you're not going to hear on mainstream media. And then on my end, I am trying to get the journeyman to. I got two goals. Hopefully, end of the year. One is to get to 20,000 subscribers. I am about 50 away from 17,000, which when I started this back in September, I think I had 11,000. So thanks to everyone who's supported. And I'm trying to get to 500. My ideal, just in terms of sustainability, if I've got 20 or 25,000 subscribers and 1,000 paid subscribers, that's kind of a equilibrium because you don't. Hey, I'd love to have 20,000 paid subscribers too, but you know
Right.
that's a little too much to ask for. But at any rate, to get to that 5,000 or 500 mark, um, my newsletter is 50% off. So at least for the first year anyway. So if you're able and you find this kind of conversation helpful, which I hope you do, hopefully it's a little educational. My wife tells me my superpower is saying things in a way people can, complicated stuff. She
Right.
can understand my BS sometimes. So anyway, until next Thursday, the show with no name. We will see you again next Thursday, folks.
Yep. We'll be here.
All right, take care.
Bye, man.
Bye.